Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master has kindly opened my eyes with the shining torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we're continuing our reading of Bhagavad Gita from the 9th chapter, entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, text number 28. 28 today. So just to recap on last week, 27. Krishna here is giving us the secret of how we can always be Krishna conscious, how we can always remember God throughout our day, throughout our life. We just have to connect everything that we're already doing, with Krishna. So what are we already doing? We're doing some work. So here in this verse, he says, whatever you do, do it for me. So whatever karma activities we're doing, we should do that for Krishna. And what else are we doing? Eating. So saying, whatever you eat, offer that to me. And we usually giving something away to somebody, give some charity or offering something to somebody. So he's saying, whatever you offer or give away, give that to me. And we're often always, we're performing some austerities. Often we'll take on some hardship voluntarily for some particular purpose. Like if you go to university, there's austerity there. You have to study for exams. It's very difficult. And before exams, often the students, they don't even have time to sleep properly or eat properly. So they're doing great austerities, but to get a certificate, not to please Krishna usually. Or working, right? It's an austerity. They're in traffic for an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, and going back and forth in traffic, taking great risk, to get to the job, to make some money. And even at the workplace, sometimes it's very difficult dealing with the boss, dealing with the other work people like that. There's so many austerities there. People take it on for their own sake. But here, Prabhupada's saying, Prabhupada is talking about in the purport, but Krishna's saying to do all these things that you're doing, but do it for Krishna. And in that way, you're going to become Krishna conscious. You're going to be Krishna conscious in all your activities. And some people will be doing other kind of sort of pseudo spiritual activities, like doing yoga or meditation or something like that. But we should do that for Krishna's pleasure. Because in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that in this age, meditation's not possible in Kali Yuga. But if one meditates on Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna, then he's going to become the highest of all yogis, the greatest yogi. So we should try to connect everything that we have an attraction for, or we have to do, but we should do it for Krishna. Does anyone want to say anything about that? Make sense? Let's turn the light on. Okay, so let's look at today's verse 28. Read the Sanskrit. Shubha Shubha Phalarevam
Shubha Shubha Phalarevam
Mokshase Karma Bandhanai
Mokshase Karma Bandhanai
Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma
Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma
Vimukto Mamupashyasi.
Vimukto Mamupashyasi.
In this way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me.
So what does it mean in this way? It means, so this is following on from the previous verses. So if we follow the directions of the previous verses, then we'll achieve this result. What's the result of being free from bondage? So what does it require that we become free from bondage? So if we follow the principles mentioned in the previous verses, so what are some of them?
Whatever you do, whatever you eat.
Yes, so that's in that one, and then in the text 26 focused on the eating part, and then it was sort of covered again in
What about
27.
like a young person and he's got a
Yeah,
girlfriend and he's deeply in love, so he
yeah.
can remember same time as well, Krishna? Like,
That may become that may make it more difficult.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay,
Yeah, that may make it more difficult. I mean, it's interesting, but it can be done.
can be done, or
There's
maybe
a
in the
story from South India going back 1,000 years ago with Ramanujacharya, one
yeah,
of the great
he went
uh,
that
spiritual
doing
masters, and he's the chief sort of teacher in the Sri Sampradaya. There's
yeah,
four bona fide Sampradayas, so we're in one of them, in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. But he is one of the main teachers in another one of the Sampradayas, the Civic sessions called the Sri Sampradaya. So that's Sri means Lakshmi, goddess of fortune. So Krishna spoke, well, Lord Narayan spoke to his eternal consort, Lakshmi, and she passed the knowledge on down through a created succession there, starting from Lord Narayan to Lakshmi, and Ramanujacharya is there. So they have a great complex there in Sri Rangam, and many other places too. They have temples, but the original base there is in Sri Rangam, and there's a wonderful deity of Vishnu lying down called Ranganath. Ranganath. So one time he was doing the Yuga Dharma. What's the Yuga Dharma? Chanting the holy names of the Lord congregationally, Harinam Sankirtan. So they were doing Harinam Sankirtan outside, walking around as we do in ISKCON. So it's not a new process. Even Ramanuja was doing it 1,000 years ago. So, and then he noticed that there was one very strong, handsome man holding an umbrella over a beautiful woman to protect her from the sun. Actually, the first time I ever saw an umbrella being used for anything other than to keep the rain off you was with Prabhupada. That disciples held an umbrella over Prabhupada. I thought, what? They're using an umbrella over someone, it's not even raining. I'd never heard of that before, using an umbrella for the sun. But yeah, it's very common in Indian culture, but also in China and stuff. You'll see a lot of the Chinese ladies trying to keep the sun off them with an umbrella and stuff like that. So, but what particularly attracted his attention was that the guy didn't even notice the Harinam, and it's pretty hard to not notice a Harinam because it's very noisy, and it really does attract the attention. A lot of different colors, devotees wearing different clothes, and then jumping up and down, dancing, and making a hell of a noise by singing, and then the drums and cymbals and everything. But this guy, you could tell, was completely oblivious to the Harinam going by. And I'll tell you just how much it attracts attention. One time we did a Harinam in Auckland years ago. And yeah, it doesn't really matter where it was. It was in Auckland, and then it was only about half a dozen of us, just a small Harinam party. But we were all very enthusiastic and everything. And so we were on this footpath on the side of the street, and there's cars going by both ways down the main street of this little town. And in one car, they were so captivated by the Harinam. It was so attractive to them that they weren't looking, the driver wasn't looking where he was going, and he crashed into the car in front of him. That's how much it caught the attention. And one time, an advertising company gave an example of the best advertising. Because what's the purpose of advertising? To attract your attention, right? That's the purpose of advertising, to catch your attention. So the example they gave of really good advertising was a Harinam party, because it like attracts everyone's attention. So even the advertising company could appreciate how good it is. But this particular person, something was attracting him even more than the Harinam, and that was the beautiful woman. So Ramanujacharya sent one of his disciples over to get the guy and had a chat. And so he was brought over, and he had a chat. Ramanuja had a chat with him and said, I noticed, you didn't even notice the Harinam, what's going on? You're so absorbed in something. And he said, yeah, it's my girlfriend. She's got the most beautiful eyes. No one has more beautiful eyes. So he's particularly attracted to her eyes like that. And Ramanujacharya said, if I can show you someone that has more beautiful eyes than her, then what would you do? And he said, oh, I'd become attracted to them.
Leave her.
So Ramanujacharya took him into the temple, and he asked the pujari to put a lamp in front of Ranganath. Because in those days, no electricity, right, and stuff. We have all brightly lit up altars in ISKCON, but it didn't used to be like that in the old days. And some temples, still traditional temples in India, big stone temples and that, they don't use artificial lighting and stuff still to this day. And the only time you can see the deity is when the pujari shines the lamp, the diya in front. They light the diyas, and then you can see like that. So the pujari put the lamp in front of the deity, and this guy, he saw the beautiful lotus eyes of Ranganath, and he became so captivated, and then he surrendered. He surrendered to the Lord. He surrendered to the Lord, and he became a very sincere, serious disciple of Ramanujacharya. Not only that, and he didn't even get rid of the girl. She also surrendered. So both of them together as husband and wife, they became a very sincere, dedicated followers of the Lord and Ramanujacharya. And later on, there was another pastime where some brahmacharis were very proud, and they were thinking, oh, we're brahmacharis, we're very renounced, like this verse is talking about being very renounced. And look at these grihastas there, like enjoying his family life, and, probably having lots of sex and all this kind of stuff. And look at us, we're very renounced everything. We don't have sex and everything. And then he wanted to teach them a lesson. So he snuck in one night and moved all their possessions around, which wasn't much because they're brahmacharis. So he shifted their kopans, their underwear around and everything. So when they woke up,
Krishna, who shifted?
Ramanujacharya.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Ramanujacharya shifted all their possessions, their clothing around. And when they woke up, they couldn't find their clothes. So then hey, you got my underwear. What are you doing? My kopans. So then they started fighting over stupid underwear. And then shortly after that, so that set the scene of what's going to happen. And then after that, he said, look, we'll really see what this Grihasta couple are like. And they were, the Ramanujacharya said that, and the Brahmacharis were very excited. And he said, some of you go in the oh yeah, you know what it was, that he said, one of you go and ask the man to come and see me, say that the guru wants to see him, and then when he leaves, and when the lady goes to sleep, his wife goes to sleep, you go in the room and take her jewelry and then hide in the room and then you watch what is the reaction when he returns. So they did that, and she was lying on her side, so they took one earring and one bangle and everything like that. From only could only get it off one side, obviously. So, and then she turned over, and they were thinking, oh, she's woken up. So then they hid in the room. And then shortly after that, then the husband returns. And he notices his wife's a bit funny looking. She's only got one earring and one bangle. So then he asked her, what's going on? And then she said, oh, Guru Maharaj's brahmacharis came into the room and started taking my jewelry off. So I turned over so they could, and I thought maybe the temple doesn't have enough money, that they need more money, so they come to take the things for the temple. So I turned over so they could take the jewelry off the other side. And then he got angry at her. Not because this jewelry got nicked, but he got angry that, what? You only gave 50%. You only gave half of what we had. You nonsense lady. You should have given everything. And the brahmacharis were hearing this, thinking, wow, these two are seriously renounced a lot more than us. But we are so attached to our bloody copins, and they're just happy to give away their valuable jewelry. So then they become humble. And that was the lesson that Ramanujacharya wanted to achieve, that these proud brahmacharis became very humble. So actually, even family people, grihastas, can also be very renounced, like sannyasis, So it's not just the sannyasis that are carrying the danda are actually sannyasis. Actually, everyone can be a sannyasi if you're fully dedicating everything to Krishna's service. Then you're as good as a sannyasi. Mm. So yeah, that's a nice story to illustrate those things. So yeah, Gulshan, you had said that you had mentioned about, what was your question about families? You said something about, oh, if you've got a girl, if you've got a lady with you, it's harder or something. So yeah, if you're focused on the lady.
Yeah, if they're the honeymoon couple and they got
Yeah.
now
Yeah,
they
so
are
he
in
was
the
like that
honeymoon.
honeymoon couple in the beginning. But yeah, we can come out of that. Sometimes it can be more difficult like that if you're too much focused on some other object. I mean, it can be anything. It doesn't have to just be a woman either. You could be really attached to wealth. Some people are really attached to wealth. Or you could be,
Position.
really attached to your health. Or, it could be anything. You're really attached to becoming famous or something, or getting a big position. You're really attached to being the CEO or something, and that'll make it difficult for you to focus on Krishna consciousness. So that's why, and we've talked about this on Saturday's talks. The definition of pure devotional service is anya vilasita shunyam. So when we make all desires other than to serve Krishna favorably, all other desires zero. Shunyam means zero. So one desire could be attraction for the opposite sex, but there's so many desires that we have. And all of these other desires can potentially take us away from Krishna consciousness like that. But so everyone can take to Krishna consciousness. However, we need to, strictly follow the guidance of the spiritual master. I would say that's the main thing, more important than whether you're a brahmachari, a grihasta, or a sannyasi, or whatever you are. A Sudra, Vaishya, Chakra, or Brahmin, whatever your position is. But the main thing is to, accept the guidance of the spiritual master. Like that young couple, they took shelter of Ramanujacharya, and he helped them transfer their attachment they had for each other, transfer that to the Lord. But then they became a good team. They became a great team to serve Krishna together. Prabhupada said when actually he told his disciples, when you get married, your service should double. Because before there was just one person, right? Yourself. But then you get married and there's not one person, there's two people. So if you look at it from that sense, what Prabhupada was pushing is that when you get married, your service should double. Maybe not easy to achieve that all the time, but potentially it's possible. And we did see it happen, like I've told you before. The first devotees that went to preach in England, in Great Britain, UK, well, they were all grihastas. It was three couples, six people, three couples, and they did amazing service. You know, it was Shamasundar and Malati, and Malati produced the first. Malati and Shamasundar produced the first child born in ISKCON. Does anyone know the name of that child? Famous child, the first, very first.
Saraswati.
Yeah, Saraswati. And then it was Guru Das and Yamuna. And Yamuna's famous. She's my cooking guru. And but she's the one also that sings the Govindam prayers in every ISKCON temple at greeting the deities. So famous for many things. And then who did I say? Oh, and then Mukunda and Mukunda Maharaj and Janaki.
Janaki.
Yeah, Mukunda and Janaki, like that. Very famous. And they met the Beatles and everything. There's so much great preaching, so much great preaching and incredible preaching they did. And they were grihastas. So, yeah, not necessarily, having a partner is an obstacle. Sometimes it is, but it doesn't have to be like that. Krishna consciousness is so powerful. It can override, any things that are normally maybe an obstacle. Like actually, in any other spiritual process, you have to be brahmachari, like that. Only in bhakti yoga, it doesn't matter. But if you're a Buddhist, traditionally, not now, no one really follows Buddhism anymore, hardly. But I mean, most Buddhists eat meat these days. That shows how little they follow, even though the main principles are ahimsa paradharma, like that, non-violence. But originally, you had to be like a monk, a celibate monk to be a Buddhist. And if you're impersonalist, another great path of impersonalism, following Shankaracharya. Did I say that right, Jayanti? She's always pulling me up that I don't say his name right, Shankaracharya. So if you want to follow Shankaracharya, you have to become a sannyasi. No association with women.
And also, like, being a brahmachari doesn't mean that you're not attached to sex life. You could be more attached to sex life as a brahmachari than a grihasta. Like if there's all that subtle sex stuff that goes on in people's minds. If that's where your mind's at in your brahmachari, well, then you can be more attached to it than someone that's married. So it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah, good point, Bhaktiman. That reminds me of a story. There was a story about one Brahmana who was reading Bhagavad Gita, on one side of the street, and there was he's doing his Brahmana work, reading the Shastra, and then there was a prostitute on the other side of the street doing her work, which is she had so many male clients coming in, and she was giving service to them, satisfying them with her service. And so in due course of time, they both died in due course. And the prostitute went back to Godhead, and the Brahmana had to come back and take birth again. And then the Brahmana's like, the soul of the Brahmana's like, to Yamaraj or whoever was speaking to, what's going on? I'm a Brahmana and she's a prostitute. She's gone back to Godhead and I have to come back. Because then there was said, then the Lord said, or whoever it was, Yamaraj said, or the Lord said, I can't remember, that, while she was, servicing her clients, she was thinking about you. Look at that Brahmana reading Bhagavad Gita. He's so fortunate. He's so fortunate to be reading Bhagavad Gita. And, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he's the Supreme Lord, but he's so affectionate to his devotee Arjuna that he's driving his chariot. And that way she was like always Krishna conscious, thinking about, the wonderful teachings of Krishna to Arjuna and like that. So she was always meditating on Krishna while she was doing her, it's she would have been brought up in that kind of family and she doesn't know any other way to make a living. But she was thinking about Krishna and she got liberated. And then he hammered the Brahmana. While you externally had your Bhagavad Gita in your hands, you were looking over the road at the prostitute, thinking about how lucky the men were to be, enjoying with the ladies. I mean, yeah, the men were enjoying with the lady. So, that's where your mind was at. So, like Bhakti Mala's pointing out, that, where your mind is, that's what's the important thing, where your mind is like that. So, and, so we have to be very careful. It's not automatic that, okay, you're a Brahmana or a brahmachari or whatever, that your mind's on Krishna. It's not automatic.
Yeah,
You've got a good opportunity.
That's why I tell all the Matajis don't to get dressed up when you go to temple, because the brahmacharis all stop in the kartal and just looking. I mean, Mataji say, I dressed up for Krishna. I said, yeah, I understand. But look at that, all the brahmacharis, it's just like getting ballistic. So,
no, that's their problem. That's their problem.
Yeah, that's their problem.
Yeah, that's their problem. I mean, but I would say, you have to clarify what dressed up means. I mean, they should be properly covered, because some ladies don't know how to put on a sari, and half of their boobs are hanging out or whatever like that. So that's not dressed up. So you wear a sari, but if you look at like any elder, Indian ladies, they know how to put on a sari better, and you hardly see anything. Like it's mentioned in the story of Krishna kidnapping Rukmini just before she got married to Shishupal, that it's mentioned there that you couldn't see any part of her body. Couldn't see any part of her body. Her head was covered and, everything else was covered. You couldn't see any part of her feet up to her head. It was just all covered up.
Muslim is good actually when they have a full hijab. Only the eyes you can see that Muslim. You can't see at all anything, so you can't have any sex desire whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the principle. That's the principle behind it. And but even though she was so covered up, the Kshatriyas on their horses and elephants and that, they fell off. Because she's just so radiating. She's the goddess of fortune, right? She's the Mahalakshmi. Rukmini is like Mahalakshmi. So she, even though she's fully covered, she's still beautiful, and they fell off their carriers like that. What to speak of if they saw any part that was uncovered? What would have happened? They would have had a heart attack probably. But yeah, so a lot of the modern day ladies, and that's the thing, they probably don't have a partner or whatever, so they're trying to attract a man, and not being properly covered.
Also there a case of where Prabhupada, where once the brahmacharis were complaining to Prabhupada or something about the lady should not come to the temple or something, and then
Prabhupada said the men should go live in the forest. They can't handle it. And they were also, the men were enjoying walking with Prabhupada on the morning walk, and the ladies had all stayed back doing all the hard work, doing all the service, and then so Prabhupada just had an earful of all the men complaining. The whole morning walk was about the men complaining about the ladies. So Prabhupada was very silent and tolerant. And then he opened the door. The door. They came back to the temple after walking. The door opened, and the ladies are like throwing showers of flowers over Prabhupada and putting petals down in front of his feet and everything. and offered him a garland. And then one was doing the arti, some were in the kitchen cooking the food for everyone, including the men and everything, and cleaning the temple room and everything like that. So, and then Prabhupada saw that, how the ladies were doing such nice service, and he turned back towards the men and said, but, so they'd been saying about women are all these, this and that, they're, distracting us and everything like that. But then, so he turned back towards the men after seeing what the ladies were doing and said, but however, if you associate with these ladies, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. Because they're not ordinary women. That's the thing. Yes, that's true. An ordinary lusty woman, that's very bad to associate with. Satsanga chage Vaishnava cha, Stri Sangha Eka Sadhu Krishna Bhakta. So it's not recommended for Stri Sangha to associate with a materialistic woman. But these women are not ordinary Stri Sangha. They're Vaikuntha women, engaged in Christian service. And they had their head covered and everything. They weren't, like a lot of modern day devotee ladies don't know how to dress properly. But, they were all covered up and everything like that. And they were so hardworking, and they were real sannyasis in the real sense. And so it's interesting. You really have to look at it with a real broad vision. We don't want to be very narrow-minded or fanatical. That's the thing. If we don't have enough knowledge, then we can tend to be very fanatical and or very sentimental like that. And but what we need more knowledge, and then you can get the bigger picture like that. And you have to.
I mean, if that's why in Harinam they put their nice sari girls in the front. It's a good way of attraction. People look at it. What's that? If the whole Prabhujis will be in the front, nobody will take a look at what is it. That's why they put it there to get it's just true. You can see.
Yeah. So that's using that attractive principle in Krishna service. So you're using that attractiveness of the ladies, because let's face it, ladies are beautiful and men are generally 100%. Not very good looking. And then and you use that in Krishna service, so attract people. And also, if the woman in front, the men can more easily protect the ladies if there's any trouble. Whereas if the ladies are behind, if anything, if someone came up behind and grabbed one of the ladies or would beat them on the head or whatever, the men wouldn't even know. They're looking forwards and the ladies are behind. So it's actually safer for the ladies, for the men to be and for the men to be behind like that. It's more better.
And attract people too.
And also in the West, we have all this equal rights and everything, and the Westerners will criticize if the ladies are behind, that they'll be thinking, oh, these Hare Krishnas, they're very chauvinistic, they put all the men are in the front, the ladies are behind, like that. So it's not good for preaching also to put the ladies behind. You could put men in the front and men in the back and ladies in the middle. That could work. Or ladies at the front and men behind like that. Like that. So a few options there. So like I'm saying, you have to have the big picture. Be very broad-minded. Like see things from how do other people think about us. Like that. Not just be very, narrow-minded thinking about ourselves. So, and that comes with maturity in Krishna consciousness. So yeah, in today's verse, so like I was saying, in this way means, so looking at from the previous verses, and what are the previous verses saying? That of sacrificing or surrendering everything for Krishna, like that. In 24, for example, Krishna says, I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. So like that. So in this way means to offer all the sacrifices that we make, offer that to Krishna, not just offer it to other demigods and so forth. But Krishna should be the object of all of our sacrifices and austerities. And in 25, he says, talks about worshipping demigods, worshipping ghosts and spirits and ancestors. And then Krishna says we should worship me. So we should offer sacrifice to Krishna. we should worship Krishna. And then 26 says we should offer food to Krishna. And then 27 says we should offer everything to Krishna. You know, the work that we do, the food that we eat, you know, whatever we give away, all our austerities, everything should be for the pleasure of Krishna. And this is really what the word gopi means. We hear that the best devotees are the gopis. Does that mean just by dressing up as a gopi or something you become the best devotee? Not necessarily. It's not really what they look like that's important, but it's about the mood. And what was the mood of the gopis? Does anyone know? What does it mean? The gopis are the best devotees. What was their particular specialty or excellence, or what was their mood that set them apart from other devotees?
Krishna's pleasure comes first. Everything for Krishna.
Everything for Krishna. Everything. When Krishna played his flute at night, they dropped everything. Like literally everything. Their child left behind. Their cooking left behind. Their getting dressed, you know, left behind. As someone was saying, and there'll be such a hurry to answer Krishna's call that they would put the top half of the clothes on the bottom half of their body and the bottom half of the clothes on the top half, and put the, you know, only have one earring on, like what I mentioned, one earring and one bangle, and they forget to put all the rest on and everything. They're just so eager to go and serve Krishna. And even though, you know, blocked by parents and blocked by husbands and children and everything like that, but they just took off, you know. And they knew they couldn't go back. You know, they couldn't go back. So if they go back, they get punished. And Vedic culture is very strict. If the woman leaves the house of the father or the husband, she can't go back. Or if she goes back, she could get beaten, verbally abused, or physically, you know, beaten or so forth, or just not allowed back like that. So they risked everything. They risked everything. They risked being rejected by society and going against modern morality and everything like that. All the social rules, social norms, the scriptures, gone against the scriptures, everything. So they sacrificed everything for Krishna's pleasure, you know. And so they're the greatest devotees, the greatest example we had. They would do anything and everything for Krishna's pleasure. They never considered their own happiness. The only thing that was important for them was Krishna's happiness. If Krishna's happy, we're happy, you know. And if we have to suffer so that Krishna can be happy, well, that we don't care like that. Like, you know, there's a story about Krishna said he's got a headache. And then the word goes around all that then he says that the only way to fix this headache is I need the dust of my devotees' feet, and I'll put it on my head, and that will fix my headache. So no devotees wanted to give the dust. How can I give the dust from my feet and put it on Bhagavan's head? I'll go to hell. I'll go to hell for putting my foot dust on Krishna's head. That was until they went to the gopis, and then they were horrified that Krishna has a headache. And then what can we do? And then the devotees said, well, Krishna says the dust from your feet on his head will fix it. And they said, how much do you want? And then the devotee said, well, don't you realize you may go to hell if you give the dust from your feet on Krishna's head? He said, I don't care. We don't care. We can go to hell, but let Krishna's headache be fixed. You know, so this is the mood of the gopis, you know, fully surrendered. You know, this is real sannyas. Everything for Krishna. And Prabhupada said that, you know, in the mood of the gopis, that my motto, my whole life is everything for Krishna, nothing for me. So that's the real meaning of renunciation, the real meaning of sannyas. So in this verse, it's saying there that Shubha Shubha Phala Evam. So Shubha means auspicious. Ashubha, if you put an A in front, changes the meaning the other way. So Shubha means auspicious. Auspicious means good. Good, right? Auspicious means good, right? So Ashubha means bad, inauspicious, right? So and phala means fruit or result. So when you do a work, when you do any kind of work, doesn't matter what it is, but when you do a kind of work, there's two outcomes, two results. It's either a good result or a bad result, right? Like now, I was doing a work recently, Dainty knows very well. I'm trying to set up a gas calefont to go with our cabin, right? And so that's the work I'm doing like that. And it's going to have a good result or a bad result, Shubha or Ashubha. And so far it's been Ashubha. Bad result. I can't get the bloody thing working. It's not working. It doesn't like our water system. So I said to her, I definitely don't want to be a plumber or a gas fitter like that. I'm just not cut out for this kind of work. I just got bad results. It's the only thing I'm getting bad result. But it doesn't really matter in Krishna consciousness whether you get a good result or a bad result. Like Krishna told Arjuna, whether you win the battle or lose, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is try to fight because I'm telling you to fight. I'm ordering you to fight. So you just do the work. Don't worry about the result. Whether you succeed or fail doesn't matter. Whether you win or lose doesn't matter. Whether you're victory or defeat doesn't matter. All you have to do is do what I tell you to do. Do your work for me. Do your work for me and don't worry about the result. He said, I'm in charge of the result, And we can look at that verse. If you ask, most Hindus, what verse do you know from Bhagavad Gita? This verse they will tell. And they probably don't know any other verse. Yeah, so second chapter, text 47. Let's look at that.
It's much nicer to get a positive result, though, isn't it? It's much easier to take when things work out than when they don't.
Yeah, but that's our disease. That
you think of Krishna more.
Yeah, when it doesn't work out.
Yeah, because if it works out, then you don't actually call out to Krishna as much, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
You actually call out to Krishna more.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways you can distinguish a non-devotee from a devotee. That a non-devotee is attached to results, and a devotee is attached to Krishna. So we're all conditioned to that. I'm included. So I get frustrated because I'm not getting a good result with a gas calefont. But as we become more and more Krishna conscious, actually we won't care about the results. We just care about we're trying to please Krishna. And that's already success. See, you're already successful. That's already a victory. You've already won. You've already got the good result. If you're trying to please Krishna, that's the best result. Is that you're trying your very best to serve Krishna. The actual outcome of the activity is inconsequential. Means it doesn't really matter. You're already successful. As soon as you have a strong desire that I'm doing this to please Krishna, and whatever happens, that's up to Krishna. But yeah, let's read this verse.
Actually, what you're saying, it reminds me of I think there's one verse in Rupa Goswami's Padyavali, I think it is, where it says, Krishna, you can make me king, or you can make me poverty stricken, or you can send me to hell, or you can take me back to Godhead. And I think there's one more, but it's all about, the dualities, really. Like it can be happy situation. But it says, but my only goal is to achieve your lotus feet and nothing else.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, Bhakti Mala, do you want to read the English?
I don't know where we're at, sorry.
Second chapter, text 47. So whoever can see the verse, read it out.
You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruit of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing any duty.
Not doing your duty.
Not doing your duty.
Mm.
Spelling mistake.
Yeah, ma phalasu kanachana. So forget about the fruits. Forget about the fruits. And that, so the result. So forget about the result. And ma kama phala hetu. Don't think that you cause the result. Hetu means cause. So we tend to think that we're in control of the outcome, but actually we're not. Krishna is. Krishna's in control. He's the Ishvara Parama Krishna. See, not even a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. So
when somebody do like a Australian Idol or American Idol, the performance on the stage, and the judges decided is he going to the next round or not. So is that the Krishna and the judges decided? Who decided there? Who's the decider? Is that Krishna is the decider?
Well,
he goes to the judges.
There's 5 factors. We've looked at it before. So for any action to get a result and outcome, there are 5 factors in deciding that outcome. So let's look at that. It's in the 18th chapter. We just have to find out where it is in the 18th chapter. It's early on. Here it is, 16. A little bit before that, 14. Yeah.
The place of action.
13.
The body, 13.
Yeah.
18th
chapter. Yeah. 13.
O mighty arm Arjuna, according to Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me.
Okay, next.
The next one is the place of action, the body, performer, the various senses, that many different kind of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. These are the 5 factors of action.
Yeah, so there's 5, but then it says ultimately the super soul. So the most important of all 5 is Krishna, is the most important factor. And but we are part of the equation. We definitely have something to do with the result. We're the performer. Performer kata. Yeah. But then there's the body that you have. That's also the body that you have is also going to take some influence on the result. And then you yourself as the soul, and then the senses, and then the different endeavor, like that. Oh, the place, where you're situated. I heard Prabhupada actually talk about this today. Basically, he said, just like he gave an example, just like you're doing business. If you take your business to the market, so the market is a very good place to do business. There's many buyers and sellers, right? And you're a good businessman. So that's one factor, right? You're a good businessman. You go to a good place, which is the market. So that's a good factor. And you have a good product like that. And then, but it says, but ultimately, if Krishna doesn't want you to succeed, then your business will fail. So even though you're a good businessman, even though you've gone to the market, even though you have a good product, but if Krishna doesn't want you to be successful, then you'll fail. So there are these 5 factors are there, and most people don't consider the Krishna factor. We've considered all the other factors. Oh, I'm a good businessman. We've gone to the marketplace. We've got a good product and everything like that, but they don't consider the Krishna factor. And we know that, not all businesses are successful, even though they might have the other 4 factors, but they haven't considered this one. Krishna's not pleased. Like in Arjuna's case, it said there was many warriors more powerful than Arjuna. He was like he was compared to a tiny fish. And compared to like Bhishma, Dronacharya were compared to Timangila. Timangila is such a big fish that it can swallow a whale whole. That's the size of Timangila. Timangila can swallow a whale whole like that. So Arjuna was compared to just a little fish in an ocean full up with these Timangila, like Bhishma, Dronacharya, like that. And yet we see that Arjuna was successful. And that's because the Krishna factor, because Krishna was supporting him. And that's the very last verse of Bhagavad Gita, 1878. I don't think we've looked at this one before. Final verse.
Whenever there is a Krishna, the master of all mystic, and wherever there is a Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. This is my opinion.
So yeah, Bhakti Mala, if you want to be successful, then we have to stick to Krishna, and then ultimately we will be always
everything
victorious.
Will be in place. Once
everything
you serve Krishna, the root of the tree, everything will be in place. Branches will be flourished, flower will come, birds will come, everything.
I was just thinking about when I think it was Gorpanin a few years ago, and I made these 3 big Kodashi cakes, and they were beautiful. And I had them in the car to go to the farm, and by the time I got there, they'd all fallen apart. And I remember that's the sort of thing that I was thinking of. Like,
all that matters is your intentions. If your intention was pure, doesn't matter if it's melt or fall apart, does not matter. It was pure, and Krishna knows.
And did you know, Bhakti Mala, that Krishna had already enjoyed those 3 cakes in your kitchen?
That's right.
When you were making them.
He didn't want to share it with anyone else.
Yeah, he probably didn't want to share it. That's why he made them all fall apart. Yeah, he was just playing with you. But yeah, it doesn't mean there won't be a few bumps on the road, but ultimately the devotee will definitely be victorious. But there may be a few bumps on the way. And these bumps on the way is what helps us make us a better devotee. You know, we should see them as tests. Krishna is testing. Like he tested the gopis also. You know how he tested the gopis? So Krishna called them with this Murali flute. The flute is called Murali. He called them with a flute, and then when they came, Krishna said to the gopis in the middle of the night, "What are you doing here? You should go back home. You should go back home. Why did you come?" And I said, "What do you mean? You called us. What do you mean? Why did we come?" And then Krishna said, "No, this is a very dangerous place in the forest in the night. There are tigers and lions, and there is all kind of wild animals, rhinoceroses, and it's not like the New Zealand forests. The Indian forests have so many vicious animals, wild animals, and that there. And there's also rakshasas come out at night, you know, man-eaters, and we don't see so many of them nowadays. But previously, like in the Ramayana time, right, the Ravana was a rakshasa. They're eating the human beings. Actually, if you go back not too long ago, even like within the last 500 years, like when the Christians were sending out missionaries to different islands like Fiji and that, then so many of them were getting eaten by the natives. One native, like Aboriginal kind of person, native kind of person. I don't just mean as Australian Aboriginal, but Aboriginal meaning like the uncivilized sort of group, sort of like that. They're all over the world. In India, they have Aboriginal type and so forth everywhere. And he ate 999 people. 990 was infamous. 999. What's that?
Who kept track?
I don't know, but that's what's mentioned, 999. I don't know. Maybe
it's all the people they couldn't find. They said he existed.
There's a tribe in India that tourists or Indians, they can't go in there. Do you know that? There's a tribe there. There's a man-eater in Nagaland. And then the Indian government, they banned that anyone to go there until the provision, like a supervision or approval from the government. Okay. Because they are tribes, same like, some in South America as well. The man-eater, like, they thinks, they are enemy and they kill and eat. So... Yeah,
but actually,
so like that, going out at night time, you face all these dangerous elements. So Krishna in that way was trying to, test them that, you're putting yourself at great risk. You should go back home. And then they said, well, we can't go back home. None of our family, like I said, will accept us and everything. And, so basically they refused, and so they passed the test. Krishna was testing whether they were going to give up. But they refused to go back. So that was actually, Krishna was pleased by that. They passed this test. And then they danced very happily together like that. Well, that's so many nice pastimes. Hey?
And after that, Krishna disappeared.
Yeah, another test. Another test.
Actually, can I just ask? It's just something that, I don't know. I mean, yes, Krishna, he's God, whatever, all that, but our duties and responsibilities, and although it says here, like, even if you don't do it, it's okay, but as long as you are, serving Krishna, but it isn't that. I mean, to me, it's not. I mean, if I leave my child and don't feed him or whatever.
Sure. That's a very good question.
Yeah. It somehow doesn't.
You can see your child, he feeding Krishna. When you feed your child, you feel like you're feeding Krishna. That's it. And you are in.
Yeah. I mean.
No, I mean, this was a special case, Deepa, because Krishna was on the planet and Krishna was calling them.
Yeah.
Krishna was calling them. So then they went there. But that's not happening now, is it? Krishna's not calling you to leave your two kids and your husband. So, but the point is that whatever Krishna wants, like in the case of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight. Krishna's personally there asking Arjuna to fight. Arjuna in the beginning says, no, I'm not going to fight. But by the end of the Bhagavad Gita, after realizing that Krishna is a supreme personality of Godhead and that we're his servant, we should do what he says, like that. So the basic thing is to do what Krishna wants. And it's not that Krishna wants every mother to leave her children. That's not what he wants. Actually, what he wants is the mother to look after the children and raise them in Krishna consciousness. Like that. That's what he wants. But this is just what?
Prabhupada also said, to many of his female disciples, he said that, even before temple worship, they should actually take care of the child.
Take care of their household duties first.
Well, not only that, he said to the mothers, for you, your children are your deity. That's the deity. For the mother, as her kids are like a deity. She should treat them like a deity of Krishna. Means that, Krishna has sent these souls to me to train them in Krishna consciousness. So it's a very big responsibility. We should try our very best. And as a devotee mother, we shouldn't, it's not just about feeding them and clothing them and giving them, sending them off to school, but it's about we try to inject some God consciousness in them, inject some God consciousness. And that's very difficult in Kali Yuga, because we're generally in Kali Yuga, we're all rebels. And I did the opposite of what my parents wanted. So we're quite rebels in Kali Yuga. But, you know, the good thing we can do as a parent is to be a good example. You know, like if the parents see, I mean, if the children see that the parents are very happily in God consciousness and they're very peaceful and very caring and loving and everything like that, then that may influence them. And even if they go off track for a while, they may come back, you know, because they had such a positive experience like that. Whereas if they see the parents are always arguing and fighting and they're never happy and with so many things, then obviously that's not very attractive, you know. But if the parents are, you know, a very nice example and everything like that and always so loving and affectionate, then that may affect them. But also we should give them some lessons, you know, the parents should give some discipline and good education, and not only in how to count and how to read and write, but in what is the soul, what is God, what is the relationship of the soul with God, and all these kind of things. And often that education's not there, but Krishna conscious parents or God conscious parents should give that, you know, spiritual education to the kids. And especially the time to do that is mentioned Chanakya Pandit, a great learned pundit in the history of India, said between 5 and 16. 5 and 16 is the best chance you have to give all this spiritual education. After 16, it said you should not try to discipline them anymore, just be a friend. Parents should be a friend because they won't take any hard discipline. The psychology changes. The mentality of the person changes when they hit around 16, and they're gonna, if you try to tell them to do something or force, they'll rebel at that point. But between 5 and 16, they're like Play-Doh. You can mold them whatever way you want to mold them. And before 5, well, you just let them play. They're too young to take the knowledge before 5, generally. They're too young to receive the education. So you let them just play and muck around till they're 5. And then you got your Play-Doh from 5 to 16. And then you just be their friend after that, you know, like that. So this is the recommendation of how the parents should deal like that. And if the kids see that the parents are, you know, chanting Hare Krishna or whatever like that, praying to God or offering the food to God and talking about God and everything, then they'll see that and that will put impressions in the mind. And that's called samskara. Samskara means you're putting impressions into the other person like that. That's why these different rituals were there in Vedic culture. 10 main samskaras to put these impressions in the consciousness of the person like that. But yeah, this is saying that, and this verse back to 9:28 again today, that you don't have to worry about this good result, bad result, shubha phalaya. Then you'll be liberated, moksha say, from karma bandhana. This is our main problem, is karma bandhana. Karma bandhana. That we get bound up, bandhana means bound up by our karma. What is the way that, how is it that the soul keeps on reincarnating life after life in the material? What is it that causes us to come back again and again and again? It's our karma. It's the results of our karma. You know, so we do an activity, and then that result will, the reaction for that will be that we have to take birth again to get that result. Like in this, like if one of my karma is that I'm eating animals, right? Then the reaction for that karma of eating animals will be that I have to take birth as an animal. So you see that karma caused me to take birth as an animal, caused me to take birth again. And if I steal money from someone, if that's my karma, if I steal money from someone, I have to take birth again to give that money back to the person I took it from. You know, or that person may, I took $1,000 from them, so I take birth, and then they take $1,000 from me in the next birth, like that. So in that way, your karma is binding you to the material world. And if you do also good karma, they've talked about bad karma, but good karma, that's also binding. You give to the Blind Foundation, the Cancer Society, and you help the old lady across the road and everything like that, then you take birth in heaven. But that's also binding because you still come back to the material world. You're not liberated. You're still, good karma, the result is you go to heaven. Bad karma, the result is you go to hell. Take birth in the lower species of life. So, but all kind of karma, good karma, bad karma, it's all binding like that. But this verse is saying this bondage we get from our activities, you can get liberated from that. And it doesn't matter your activities, whether it's good karma or bad karma, whatever the results, you get good results, bad results. So how is that possible? How it's possible that you get liberated from karma is the sannyas yoga yuktatma. So if you're completely engaged in giving up the results, whether it's you've got good results or bad results, you give those results up to Krishna. You give those results up to Krishna, because as soon as you say yoga, that means it's for God. That means you're linking with God, whether it's karma yoga, jnana yoga, stanga yoga, bhakti yoga. As soon as you got the word yoga there, it means you're connecting with God. Different ways of connecting with God. Through karma yoga is one way, jnana yoga one way, ashtanga yoga one way, bhakti yoga one way. So, but yoga means you're connecting with God. So, and sannyas means you're connecting with God by you giving up all the results of all your activities to God. Vimukto, then you'll be liberated. Then you'll be liberated. Then you'll be liberated. So this mukto is mentioned twice. So it's slightly different. Mokshase and vimukto, but similar meaning. You'll be free from, liberated. Liberated means free. So you'll be free from the reaction or the bondage of karma, and then ultimately you'll be completely free from the material world. You go back home, back to Godhead. So the first thing is we need to get free from the bondage of karma. And the way to do that is by doing all your activities for the sake of God, for the sake of Krishna. And if you do that, do all your activities for the sake of Krishna, not only are you free from the bondage of karma, but you'll go back home, back to Godhead. You won't take birth again. And then vimukto mam. Mam means me. So he's saying you'll come to me. You'll be freed from this material world and you'll come to me. Upashasi means you will attain me. So mam upashasi, that you will attain to me, like that. So this is Krishna is summarizing this process, how it works. That whatever you're doing, you do that for the pleasure of Krishna, and that will release you from the bondage of karma. And that way you become a perfect sannyasi, renounced person, and then you will be liberated from this material world, come back home, back to Godhead. Hari bol. So we should be sannyasis. Yeah. You don't want to say anything about that before we look at the purport? Does that make sense? Okay. Deepa, would you like to read a bit of the purport?
Yeah, okay. Hang on.
One who acts.
One who acts in Krishna consciousness under superior direction is called yukta. The technical term is yukta vairogya. This is further explained by Rupa Goswami as follows.
No need to read the Sanskrit, but let me just make a point on this. This is very important. Okay, one who acts in Krishna consciousness under superior direction. So that's a very important principle of Krishna consciousness, because you could act in Krishna consciousness, but according to your whimsical ideas, that is not really Krishna consciousness. So you You act in Krishna consciousness, but always, very importantly, under some guidance. We need guidance or direction. Means like a guru, a spiritual master. It could be Shiksha Guru, some instructing spiritual master, which you can have many of those, or Diksha Guru, initiating spiritual master, or like that. Or here we have the Bhagavad Gita. So we're following the direction of Bhagavad Gita. That's very good. You won't go wrong. So you should act in Krishna consciousness according to the direction, the guidance of the scriptures of the spiritual master. We have three things, right? Sadhu, Guru, and Shastra. Very important. We should work under the direction of these three things. Sadhu means the devotees, senior devotees, and then Guru, spiritual master, and then Shastra, the scriptures, like that. And then you won't go off track. If you don't follow these things, Guru and Shastra and that, then even though you try to be Krishna conscious, but we may not be successful because our crazy mind, may take us off track and so forth. Best is to always work under guidance. And that's our prayer we say in the beginning, right? I was born the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual masters opened my eyes. So that should tell us the importance of why we need guidance. Why do we need guidance? Because we're born ignorant, So just like when we're a young kid, we get guidance from our parents, right? And then the parents send us off to school. Why do they send us off to school? To get more guidance. And then why do we approach a spiritual master? To get guidance, to know who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose in life? Like that. Why am I suffering? What's the solution to my suffering? Like that. And those are the answers we don't normally get from our parents. And those are the answers we don't normally get from school. We're only going to get those answers from the Guru, the spiritual master. Who am I? Why am I here? Why am I suffering? Where's the solution to a suffering? All these kind of things. So we need to approach a Guru, a spiritual master. It's very important. So, yeah, Krishna consciousness develops under the guidance of some higher authority, someone that's more elevated than ourselves, And if we think there's no one more elevated than ourselves, then we have serious issues called false ego and pride. Then that's problematic. Then you can't basically progress. Like one time, just to show what the difference is between a devotee and a non-devotee, Krishna sent Duryodhana on a mission and Yudhisthira on a mission. Duryodhana's mission was that you travel around the world and find someone better than you. And Krishna gave Yudhisthira the mission, you travel around the world, find someone worse than you. And Duryodhana came back after his world travel. I tried really hard, but yeah, I couldn't find anyone better than me. I'm sorry. And Yudhisthira came back and said, I thought I finally found someone that's worse than me, and then I saw that person has a quality that I don't possess. So no, I didn't find anyone that's worse than me. So, that indicates, the non-devotee is proud and the devotee is humble. So when you're humble, you can take guidance. And when you're proud, you can't take guidance. So basically, if you can't take guidance and you're proud, then you're probably not going to be successful in Krishna consciousness. However, you have to be intelligent to know who is the suitable person to guide you. Because not everyone is, and there's so many people that accept some bogus guru, nonsense, authority like that. Cheaters. As Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told Prabhupada and others, this is the world of the cheaters and the cheated. So many people, if they're not intelligent, if they don't have discrimination of who's the right authority, who's the wrong authority, they accept the wrong authority. And then what will happen? They will lead them into a ditch. You know, because it said of the blind leading the blind, andaya yat andaya. If you are blind and you hold hands on another blind person, where will you end up? You're following a blind person. What's that, Deepa?
In the ditch.
In the ditch. So that's very common, you know. So just blindly following some, you know, direction is also not good. Also not good, you know. Like our beloved government told us 4 or 5 years ago that the vaccine is safe and effective and all this kind of stuff. They just end up in a ditch. It's completely rubbish. They're just crooks. So that's not the kind of authority that we want, you know, like that. So we have to find the Satguru, the true guru. Even there's persons that advertise themselves as Sadguru, but not, you know, like we hear the Sadguru, all he talks about is something in relationship to the body and the mind. And he never talks about the soul. It's the soul that's Sat. It's the soul that's Sat. And God is Sat. Not the body and mind is Asat. The body and the mind is asat, always talking about this yoga exercises and do pranayama and this food, this diet is good for health and everything and for your peace of mind and everything like this. Do this for peace of mind. Do this kriya, these kind of activities to get peace in your mind. But this is all asat. But advertising is that Sadguru, Sat. But they don't even know what is Sat. And there's the foolish people, millions of followers that don't know the difference between Sat and Asat. So that what they're accepting something as Sat, which is actually Asat, like that, and they don't have any idea. So this is very unfortunate. But it's you know, we don't like to have to criticize people, of course. But these things have to be known, otherwise people will end up in a ditch. People will end up in a ditch. Okay, Deepa, please continue. I'll try not to interrupt.
Rupa Goswami says that as long as we are in this material world, we have to act. We cannot cease acting. Therefore, if actions are performed and the fruits are given to Krishna, then that is called Yukta Vairagya. Actually situated in renunciation, such activities clear the mirror of the mind, and as the actor gradually makes progress in spiritual realization, he becomes completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, at the end, he becomes liberated, and this liberation is also specified. By this liberation, he does not become one with the Brahma Jyoti, but rather enters into the planet of the Supreme Lord. It is clearly mentioned here, Mam Upaishyasi. He comes to me, back home, back to the Godhead. There are 5 different stages of liberation, and here it is specified that the devotees who has always lived his lifetime here under the direction of the Supreme Lord, as stated, has evolved to the point where he can, after quitting this body, go back to Godhead and engage directly in the association of the Supreme Lord.
Jayanti, you want to read? Anyone?
Anyone who has no interest but to dedicate his life to the service of the Lord is actually a sannyasi. Such a person always thinks of himself as an eternal servant, dependent on the supreme will of the Lord. As such, whatever he does it for the benefit of the Lord. Whatever action he performs it as service to the Lord. He does not give serious attention to the fruitive activities or prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. For ordinary persons, it is obligatory to execute the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas, But although a pure devotee who's completely engaged in the service of the Lord may sometimes appear to go against the prescribed Vedic duties, actually it is not so. It is said, therefore, by Vaishnava authorities that even the most intelligent person cannot understand the plans and activities of a pure devotee. The exact words are Tandravakya Kriya Mudra Vigneha Na Bhujaya. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 23.39. A person who is thus always engaged in the service of the Lord, or is always thinking and planning how to serve the Lord, is to be considered completely liberated at present, and in the future his going back home, back to Godhead, is guaranteed. He is above all materialistic criticism, just as Krishna is above all criticism.
Okay, just a couple of points. Our time's nearly up. That early on the purport it mentioned, actually situated in renunciation, such activities clear the mirror of the mind, and as such the actor gradually makes progress in spiritual realization. So how is it that by renunciation, meaning giving up the results of activities, how does that clean the mirror of the mind? So what's in our mind is that ordinarily everyone is working motivated by enjoying the results of their work. That's what everyone is after in this world. That's why we're called fruitive workers. Fruitive workers means that's our purpose of working, is to enjoy the fruit. However, if we get trained up to renounce that, to give up the fruits of our work and give them to Krishna, that purifies our mind. Because our mind is tainted by that strong desire. I want to enjoy that fruit, that result, that money at the end of the week, like that. But if we can give that up, then we become purified of that. And what do we realize? That the results that I'm getting belong to Krishna. They're Krishna's property. Everything belongs to Krishna. He's the enjoyer, as mentioned in 9:25, that he's the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Everything, he created everything. God created everything. Therefore, everything belongs to him, and he should enjoy everything. So the devotee realizes that, gives up all the results of his work, realizing it's all Krishna's property, it's all for his enjoyment, and that way his mind becomes purified. Instead of thinking, I'm the enjoyer of everything belongs to me, which is complete Maya illusion, our mind realizes that everything belongs to Krishna. Let Krishna enjoy it. So that's how the mind becomes cleansed, by giving up the results of our work to Krishna. It's very purifying for the mind. And something else I noticed. 5 stages of liberation. We've been talking about that on Saturday, the 5 stages of liberation. What does that mean? It means there's Shantarasa, which is called neutrality. And then there's Dasyarasa, which means you're liberated as a servant of God. Dasya means servant. So that's one kind of liberation. You're the servant of God. And then there's Sakyarasa, which means you're the friend of God. You have an equal kind of relationship with God. You're a friend of God. And then Vatsalyarasa means like the parent of God. So we know Devaki and Vasudeva, that Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. So they're like parents of God. So that's a kind of liberation. And then there's Madhurya Rasa or Shringa Rasa. That's like a lover, like the gopis or the queens, Krishna's queens, like Rukmini we mentioned. So that's Madhurya Rasa. So you become the wife of God or the girlfriend of God. Yes, Jayanti.
Hey, then where does that 5 I thought the 5 liberation was like that Sarshti, Sarupya,
Salokya.
Salokya, Sayujya. I was under the impression that those are the 5.
Oh, it could be meaning that. It could be, yeah, it could be, you're right. It could be meaning that. 5 different stages of liberation. Yeah, so maybe it is meaning that instead of the 5 different rasas that I was mentioning.
But then that would mean but they are actually kinds of liberation. They're not really stages, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I thought it was more about talking about rasas, but that could also be there. So for what you're talking about there, so that's you could be liberated. Well, one kind of liberation, which a devotee doesn't desire, is to merge into God's effulgence. So that's called sayuja mukti, to merge into the spiritual light. And there's no opportunity for service in that, so a devotee thinks that is like hellish. But the impersonalists, that's their goal, is to merge into the light. That's the Mayavadi's goal. And then there's Sarupya, means you get the same form as God. So in Vaikuntha, that Lord Narayan's servants look exactly the same. 4 arms, beautiful blue color, lotus eyes, everything. The only difference is Narayan has a beautiful necklace with the shape of a calf. It's called what is it called?
Kaustuva.
Kaustuba. Yeah, Kaustuba money. Kaustuba money. And then he has a golden line on his chest called Srivatsa. Srivatsa, a golden line of hair on his chest. But apart from that, he looks exactly the same as all of his servants. So that's called Sarupya Mukti. And then you can live on the same planet. That's called Salokya. Live on the same planet as the Lord. And then have the same opulence as the Lord. And I keep getting the Sanskrit mixed up. It's either Saristi or Samipya.
Samipya.
No, Sarshti
is a close one. You're getting close to the God. Samipya.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Sarshti is the same opulence as the Lord.
Okay.
But I don't remember what Samipya is.
Samipya means like it's come from Samip, the word. You're getting close to the God. You feel
maybe
like
always having as association or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are there too. So one or the other. But yeah, it's a wonderful existence. Different rasas, living with the Lord all the time, having all of his opulences. Wonderful life. And the way to achieve this liberation, like it's saying here, we have to become sannyasis. And what does that mean? Prabhupada's explained. Such a person always thinks himself an eternal servant, depending on the supreme will of the Lord. He does it for the benefit of the Lord. Whatever action he performs it as a service to the Lord, like that. And interestingly, it's mentioning such a person that's completely dedicated to Krishna. It's very hard for ordinary person to understand them.
Yeah.
It can be quite confusing. The behavior of a pure devotee can be, because obviously the way a pure devotee behaves is opposite to everyone else, because everyone else is doing everything for their own benefit, whereas a pure devotee does everything for Krishna's benefit. So it's going to be weird, right? It's going to be quite weird.
What they're saying, that if the world says you're crazy, it means you're on the right path.
There was a pamphlet actually they produced in the early days of ISKCON when Prabhupada was there. The title of the pamphlet was Who's Crazy? Because the non-devotees think the devotees are crazy and the devotees think the non-devotees are crazy. So it was like, well, who is crazy? Like that. So everyone thinks everyone else is crazy. So yeah, it can be hard to understand the pure devotee by their activities. Very difficult. And sometimes it looks like they're externally just like an ordinary person, like that, doing the same kind of activities. But like I said, the real difference is in the mentality that they're doing it to please Krishna. They're not doing it to please himself. You know, like Arjuna, he looks like just a warrior like every other warrior, but what's the difference? Every other warrior is doing it to please themselves, but Arjuna's acting as a warrior to please Krishna, you know, like that. And but it can be hard to understand. Unless you're an advanced devotee yourself, you can't understand an advanced devotee. We have to also become advanced if we're going to understand a devotee like that. And everything they do is inspired by Krishna. Everything they do is inspired by Krishna. So we shouldn't criticize. So like it's saying the final thing. He is also above materialistic criticism, such as Krishna is above all criticism. So we should be very careful not to criticize an advanced devotee, even though sometimes their activities might seem a bit out there like that. And if you're not exactly sure whether they're an advanced devotee or not, better don't say anything. Because if you criticize the wrong person, then your own spiritual life goes, you flush it down the toilet, you know, so we have to be careful what we say. Like there's a saying, you know, you can call a thief, but don't call an honest person a thief. You know, so there's no harm in calling a thief, but if you call an honest person a thief, then that's very bad, like that. Okay, well that's it from me. Does anyone else want to say anything?
No, thank you.
Comments, questions, criticisms? Well, lovely to see you, Deepa, after a long time. Great to have you with us.
Lovely to see you.
Yeah.
Lovely to see you.
How's Ben doing?
Thank God he's okay. He just finished one round of radiation again, but thank goodness he's okay. He's well.